We're going live. And welcome everyone. Welcome to this last workshop of our ImpactXcelerate program. And today we're going to talk about the topic that has been maybe a bit more like a question mark in your heads: growth hacking marketing for social business. And how can we make impact and business scale fast with some techniques that we're going to go through today. So we're waiting for people to connect on the platform, on our social media. Meanwhile, I can already start asking in the chat, like, what brings you here today? So what is your question mark in your head right now? And let's see how we can answer all your questions, or most of them, today in this workshop. So let's see. Feel free to type in your questions in the chat. And welcome to those that are connecting meanwhile. So do we have some, do we see some things in the chat? Okay, so let's see, maybe people are still connecting, still trying to figure out where we are, but meanwhile, we hope that we will get close to answer to your questions as we go forward. So a brief introduction of what we're going to see today, and I'm going to present you also our great guest in our workshop. So we will answer your question of what does growth hacking mean, and why is this important for social business. Don't expect a place in which you're going to become a growth hacker, experienced growth hacker all of a sudden. What we will show you is really more how to think like a growth hacker, how to apply growth hacking thinking. And we're going to explore something that looks very weird written here, the R funnel, but we're going to explain you in a bit what it is. And at the end, we're going to have also a little exercise so that you can really focus on your social business, on like a specific project you have in your mind, and you can apply what we learn in the workshop at the end of this workshop. But before getting into the details, let me present you Isabella Rossi. She's a global culture and engagement manager at Miro. She has worked for Google, consulting a lot of any kind of and sort of businesses and social businesses on different methodologies to improve their revenues. So I'm super happy that she's here with us today. Also, like as a good old date friend as well. Super happy to always whenever we get the chance to work together. And
super happy to be here, Maria, and super happy to see so many social entrepreneurs connected as well. I think we're going to have a lot of fun today exploring growth hacking.
That's super. And we're going to have a very interactive session. So Isabella has some examples that she brought today to really see practical aspects in this workshop. But anytime, Isa, feel free to interrupt me and put your comments in, so that we have the most interactive session as possible. So let's go in deep into what is growth hacking. And you see a bunch of words here on the right. It's about data, UX, user experience, CRO, marketing, coding, automation. So it sounds very complex. It can be complex. It's not something that usually is done, of course, by only one person. It's usually a team that can manage growth hacking. And there's different descriptions that describe what growth hacking is. The one that we like to use is this one. Growth hacking is a process that combines very different aspects. So you have data analysis, the product management, marketing. You have a mindset of experimentations, design thinking across various channels. So it is a mix of things, but the reason why growth hacking is there is really to identify, it allows businesses to identify the most effective ways and approaches in which they can grow their businesses, leveraging on indeed data, marketing, and on their product themselves. In social business, we like to call it a bit the marketing to the poor, because what growth hacking can teach you is how you can leverage on a series of techniques and tools which are freely available with limited budgets, and how with this limited budget you can enhance your social business and you can grow fast. Because a lot of time, of course, we see huge resources being invested in marketing, in making sure that your business model is ready and like you have the greatest product ever. But what is really important and what growth hacking teach us is have a product that it's ready, test it, and use some tools that allow you to test it quick and to get to a lot of users. We're going to get a bit more into details into that. One of the reasons, and especially in social business, growth hacking is fundamental is because the data show us, and we have been tracking this data actually since 2019, and we see how now, for example, the first reason for which startups fail is the lack of cash. So sometimes indeed we spend huge resources, but then we fail to kind of like find customers and have customers paying. And cash is one of the biggest reasons for failure among startups. And in social business, it's even more the case because as we know, social business, because of its structure around solving social environmental problems, it kind of like gets out a bit of the usual financial market. So it's already very hard to find investments. And if you fail to have a model that generates cash fast, then you fail to succeed very easy and very quick. Market need was usually one of the first aspects that led startups to fail. Now it got a bit surpassed this year, like in 2021, the last data that we have by cash, but also, of course, maybe you think you have a market need, but it's not really an identified market need. And the way you can test whether you have an actual market need is indeed by testing fast, whether your model is working or not, and whether it's generating customers. And third reason why startups fails, you get outcompeted, of course. So you see one element, which is like speed and resources, of course, a lack of resources. And this is why growth hacking is very important for social businesses, because it can allow you to get these 3 points sorted out very quickly and with limited resources, and then go to the next step of your growth.
I would add to that it also helps you to get feedback on your product. So whether you have a physical product or a service, it's a great way to get out in the market and test it and act on your bottom line to then understand what your customers want. Do you need to adapt your product? Do you need to adapt your service? Maybe, you wanted to go with too many services at once or too many features, and it's enough to go forward with what makes customers happy.
Exactly. Or the pricing as well. Test your pricing. Maybe, like there's a problem with the prices, you can test that as well. Absolutely. And we will see from your examples, right, Isabella, exactly how some social businesses leverage on that. Now we saw why startup fails, and here it's again like data from startups and from the tech industry, because that's where growth hacking also comes from, the tech industry. We also see how some companies instead grow fast. And as you can see in this graph, you have you have the dates and also a time frame on the horizontal axis, and on the vertical axis you have the number of users. The trick of these tech companies, for example, to grow very fast is to get users, is to get leads. Why? Because once you get leads, you are in direct contact with people, and you can your customers, and you can see exactly and track exactly their behavior, for example, and you can then work to convert them into customers and make them pay. So conversions fast is the rule, let's say, in growth hacking, how you really get those leads and convert them into paying customers. So here we see a bit of difference indeed. When you talk about traditional marketing, you just stop. And that's also why marketing is always associated with advertising, right? Because you just, you make these campaigns, you create awareness, and then maybe you have people getting on your website. So the measurement that you use is just until they get to your website. And then you have some other department, sales, and some other people like checking, how much revenue did you generate on that? So this is a traditional model that always had little impact, and then only huge companies can afford, because they invest so much in advertisements to then get to the conversion. When you talk about growth hacking, we have a look at the all funnel. So not only about generating awareness about your product, but also really about getting people on your platform, not only clicking on your website, but maybe they start to fill in their details. And then they're converted, they become a lead, they register to some sort of service, and then through that registration, you can then bring them into revenues. and then maybe you keep selling things to them, and then like they share your products, and then you have referrals. So we're going to go more in detail into this funnel later on. But you see the difference here is that really you focus on the all funnel, not from awareness to really creating revenues, and make that revenues continue automatically with your current customers, and having your customers are influencers as well. And it's not just about creating an advertisement or whatever, but it's really, you see how everything is interconnected. So the way you communicate, the way you engineer a product, you continue test your product. So that's also why in growth hacking, as also Isabella was saying, right? You just start, you get out with your product, and then you're going to continue changing your products and test it out. I know, Isabella, you have a very great example on this. I stopped like sharing my screen for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to tell you about this amazing social business that I worked at during my time at Google. I was mentoring the founder of this travel app for elderly people. It's a super cool concept, so I'm also going to spend a couple of minutes to talk about it. Basically, the founder, after his elderly mom died, was looking for activities for his widowed dad to do. And he decided, after having sent him off to some other friends on a house exchange, to found this platform that basically became a social travel platform that had the idea to connect mature individuals on a global scale, offering them opportunities to travel, but also to host and to form bonds with like-minded peers. And so the initial business model was around this mutual hosting. So they had the revenues that were coming from memberships of the platforms, but also from hosting commissions. And similarly to what we've seen before, they had figured out market gap, and there was product market fit. We're talking of before COVID, so traveling was even more expensive than it is now, and elderly people have huge spending power. And they also tested out the concept. They saw that it worked. They started getting hosts on their platform, especially focusing on the US market that has a population that is growing older and with good spending power. However, they had a challenge that was related to monetizing all of the awareness that they had built. So it is exactly this movement from awareness to effective conversion that was lacking for them. They invested a lot of money in and resources in ads. However, this bridge to action was what was missing. They were generating a lot of interest, but they didn't have a conversion strategy to fill the revenue pipeline. And this put a lot of strain. I remember the founder had cash flow problems. He had some volunteers working on the team with him, and was really scared of not being able to then grow his staff to be able to sustain the growth plans that he had for the platform because of these liquidity problems. Another issue that they had was that registrations were high, but when it came to paying memberships remained low. So this was a hint to the fact that they didn't have clear benefits explained, and the incentives of joining the community and being part of this platform were not really clear to their target customers and to their target audience. And another thing that I noticed immediately when I opened their website for the first time was that this platform was super sophisticated. But remember, their target customers were people over 65. So they didn't really cater specifically to the mature audience. The font was super small. The web pages were filled with like this amazing emotional video that didn't load. The pages took up to 10 seconds to load. So it was a bit, for their target audience, again, a bit of a disaster. And another thing was that they were focusing a lot on community. However, they were not doing any community building. All users for them had value if they became paying users. So they actually put a lot of pressure into people that register on the platform to become paying users, and this alienated some of the members that were also their first early advocates and were really believers of the genuine value that it brought. It's a bit of a bleak picture, Mary. Any curiosities, or does it resonate with your experience working with social businesses? I think you're on mute.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes. So, and absolutely it resonates, and it shows exactly like in these days during these ImpactXcelerate programs, we have been like mentoring a lot of like this kind of platforms where you have a lot of this community aspect and involving some specific targets, but you need to know exactly who you're talking to, the first thing, and who is there's a distinction as well between who is your beneficiary and who is then your final user, that is going to be your revenue like producer, so to say, like from who you will generate your revenues. And the moment in which you can have exactly, you can involve a lot of people in your community, but then the way in which you make them paying customers is a lot of like the challenges that a lot of these kind of platforms are, for example, facing in our ecosystem. So we always have to start again from, okay, maybe the business model, it's well thought, and maybe they even tested it a bit, but exactly like the understanding fully of the target maybe is also there, but the way in which you translate this into then the platform or the product you're producing, and the fact that it is clear the message you're bringing and it resonates in the mind of the people, that's absolutely something that resonates totally with the experience that we have.
I would be super interested as well if any of you who experience similar challenges want to drop us a line in the chat. We'll be having some interactions and Q&A at the end. So super keen to also hear about your experiences.
Absolutely. And also like we will have a Q&A, so at the end we can really have like more interaction, but you can start typing in your questions, and we will also have a moment in which, as I said before, you can go, there's a workbook that you can find also on the platform, and you can download it, and at the end, as we go through the different exercises now, you can think about your personal social business, have a mental exercise, and then we can exchange on that later on. I'm going to share again my screen because we can go forward and to now the really going a bit deep from your example, Isabella, then what can we change and how can we change the model and the system to apply growth hacking, and in particular, really to think like a growth hacker.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me break the ice and tell you a bit about what we did with Elderwings,
yes.
this specific business, and then also what some of the lessons that we can apply are. So what did we end up doing? We basically, content is the key. We decided to invest a lot in content. So what Elderwings did in this case was to introduce premium articles, webinars, digital workshops that they also charged to their members. But the genius move that was in order not to alienate their existing members, and because they knew that their target audience had a high spending power, they decided, instead of putting a fixed fee, that they would adopt a pay what you want model. So basically this enabled them to democratize access and to engage users on one side, probably something that they would have done anyways, but then at the same time also to use engaged users to generate a little revenue and to basically get them into the system. Another thing that I advised them to do was to do a product placement on and collaborations with other products that their target users used. So in this case, for example, they identified via market analysis that their target audience was avid consumers of newspapers and specific types of newspapers, for example, around motor vehicles or gardening that were very, very popular, or hunting that were very, very popular among mature readers. So they decided to launch joint marketing campaigns with placing their product and also having subscription bundles, so that people that would subscribe to these newspapers also could subscribe to joining the Elder Wings platform. And this was a way to tap into an engaged audience and also cement their brand presence. So act on awareness, but at the same time generate conversion. This out-of-the-box thinking is also what led me to advise them to basically try to find vehicles for donations as well. So they actually decided to create a donation mechanism via tax forms, again, to appeal to the wealthy or relatively well-off audience that they have, so that they not only used subscription revenues as an avenue for financial support, but also were able to enhance their brand image as basically be seen as a worthy cause. And especially, for example, among the sons and daughters as well, that like the founder wanted to use this service. So this is basically, in a nutshell, what they did. How does it apply to you, or how can we use it for you?
Yeah,
yes, Mary.
That's interesting, because you touched on two aspects which are like among the pillars of growth hacking and what we always like share. The first one is indeed this user-centered approach. So you went back into, okay, content is the key, and that can allow them to create more awareness, but content relevant for the users. And also the way I see you identified different channels where they could go to make some product placements, where channels relevant to the user. So the user is the first aspect that we always say. We don't even talk about target market, but who is your persona and how do they behave? So really go deep into understanding your users. Having a product that does most of the work. So this is the second pillar that we always give, like sometimes we spend so much time, okay, thinking about a product that really like it's like a huge robot, but there's a lot of like systems out there that can be used, and it can be something very simple, automated in a way that you don't have to do huge forms of development, but you can use your product in different ways. So like I see from your example, adding workshops, you have a community, it's just adding some things on top, but the whole platform is doing most of the work. Just how do you bring it to the next level? Test and retest it, so add new features, and also leverage opportunities in the eye of the influencers. So like another aspect that we always say is, okay, your users are also your influencers. So try to really have like a way in which users are going to share your product, and they're gonna like involve new users as well. And I can see maybe that's also why they were able to create this huge community in your example. The problem was indeed in making the next step and creating paying customers. So this way that, for example, you're saying democratizing access with this pay as you want model, it's something that, for example, we're always suggesting a lot to our social businesses, because of course there is this pressure of generating money, and at the same time, though, you want to get to more users, so you want to get your message out there. So this can be like a very key aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. You can be really creative in terms of how you extract revenues, whether it's using a pay-as-you-want system, or, for example, looking at external platforms, and also leverage the giving element, or leverage partnerships with other brands or products that you like. It's really about thinking out of the box on how you can find different avenues for revenues that can help you catch two birds with one stone. So not only increase your user base and generate awareness for your brand and for your product, but also generate paying customers in the end.
Absolutely. And this is like always so we're gonna like now go into the funnel, and we're gonna go like really make the exercise all together, so that you can also like go through your own social business. But exactly what like Isabella was saying right now, whenever like you want to venture into growth hacking, there's some things that you need to keep in mind. First, in general, be ready to be indeed, as Isabella was saying, out of the box. You need to be creative. There's always new ways in which you can find solutions to make revenues, to involve your users and make them register on your website, etc. Be analytical. So data is key. So it's fundamental that you gather data and you really analyze your data and you react on your data. And be technical. So find ways in which you get this data and you can automate ways in which you can retarget people with very cheap tools. And whenever, like just sometimes we see that people invest so many months and times into developing projects, the business model. So just be sure that you have a business model which is 80% validated. I mean, like still there has to be a certain level of validation, of course, because otherwise you're going to still spend like resources and your time into validating a business model which was not fully validated. Be clear. The first thing is really your value proposition and your target market, but more the personas. So who are you talking to and what is your value proposition? How do you reach really to the, in social business is mainly the heart of people, like is like really to, it's not, there is always also a functional aspect, of course. So why do they need you? But it's also like more of an emotional aspect, which is very strong compared to other businesses. And now we're going to go, as I said, into the R funnel. And what does R stand for? So we saw it a bit before, but we like to think about this funnel as really like a guide for you. It can really allow you to follow your consumers along really the whole journey. So AAARRR stands for awareness, acquisition, activation, revenue, retention, and referral. What we're going to do now, we're going to go into detail in every single step. We're going to provide you with, first of all, what is your objective at every step? What are the channels that you can target? What are the KPIs that you should measure to make sure that at every step of the funnel, you make tests that work and allow you to go into the next phase with more leads and more like resources. And to do this, we have a second example, Isabella, right, that you created. So like that you bring today to us. So maybe you give a bit of an intro on your example, and then we're going to go in detail into it.
Super. Yeah, example also very much based on organizations that I collaborated with in the past. So this is related to an organization that is focused on imparting IT skills, particularly coding courses to refugees. So their vision is to use IT training as a bridge for refugees to integrate into their new communities, capitalizing obviously on the global IT demand. So to find jobs for them in IT and make a lot of companies that are looking for hiring diverse talent happy.
Yeah. We have a lot of social businesses in our network focused on education, and in particular, like on this kind of, like, for example, providing coding trainings for refugees. So super nice that we have this example today. And we're
super happy to hear that it's very important. And
absolutely, absolutely. And so let's see, for example, what is the name again of the social business?
We're gonna call it, because I don't want to expose any of the businesses that I worked with, even though many of them actually shared very similar problematics and challenges. We're gonna call it TechBridge.
TechBridge. Okay, so we're gonna TechBridge. Nice. So we're gonna go now into like the example of TechBridge, and the first step that we will analyze is indeed awareness. So go ahead, Isa.
So one of the things that I saw most often with companies working in talent development in IT is that when it came to outreach, so to finding potential students, many of them focused exclusively on using Facebook ads because the barriers to learn how to use it are not that high, and they were able to acquire a huge volume of leads. That then basically they would contact to send them their sign-up forms and to share information about the course. Here in the awareness stage, what I saw is that many of them were getting a lot of leads, many more than their team was able to call back or to actually check and prove. But a lot of these leads ended up being unqualified leads. So basically people that were either not in target for the specific course, or were not interested, or were not able to commit the time requirement needed for the course. So here, a first step that I always advised these businesses to do is to be very clear about the value proposition of the course and to explain upfront what both the benefits are, but also the commitments required and the criteria to take part are. This was a quite key step because, as you can imagine, they were getting say leads in the dimension of the hundreds, and they were a very small team. So calling back all of these was a huge cost line on the balance sheet of the organization.
Yeah. And here we can say really like making your product and service clear and visible. And sometimes the mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs make is they think this step is very easy. You just make a website, but sometimes you need to focus exactly on your value proposition. How is it relevant for the people you're talking to? Will that message be understood by people who don't work day to day on your business as you do, for example? And that's like what makes a bit of a difference. We have some questions that are coming in the chat I'm seeing. We are going to go into the questions in a moment. But like we just continue with Isa on the exercise, and maybe we stop a little bit at the end of the exercise. So when we go into awareness, of course, the different steps that you will see, like, I mean, you use social media, you can have influencers talking about your business, and then the KPIs that you need to think about in this phase. How many views do you have then in your website? How many people are then landing on your landing page? How many mentions, maybe, shares you could have on social media? I don't know, Isa, if you can come up with some other KPIs or some other ideas of channels, but usually this is the kind of like KPIs that you use in this phase. And the challenge that you have then is, how do you take then this kind of clicks only? How can you track those clicks, and how can you recontact and retarget those clicks to move them into leads? And that's where we go into the next step, how to create leads which are interested in your product. So from social media, like, I mean, you have similar, of course, channels compared to your previous step in the funnel. But then the difference here is really, how do you make people register? They land on your page. How many people subscribe to your newsletter? How many people subscribe to a course, for example, connecting maybe to the example of Isa that you have on your website? So, and also, how are people interested in your, do they just land on your website and then they leave, or they stay, they look around, and how are you able them to really capture those visits, for example? I don't know, Isa, if you want to add something on
Yeah,
this.
absolutely. So in terms of acquisition, think, what do we want people on our website to do? And this should be always in your advertising efforts, if you're aiming at acquiring users, prominent. Namely, we want to bring them to a specific section of our website where they can subscribe, for example, to a service, or they can get access to a subscription form for one of our courses. Then we need to have a call to action button that is visible, and it's the first thing that they see if they land on the website. Then, if they're interested in browsing around, they can always look at your story as a team, and the amazing pictures from specific events or courses that you have. But really, we should try to make the path to conversion as simple as possible, and important, as simple as possible also per mobile. Because think about how much time we spend scrolling on our phones. It's super, super important that you have call to action buttons above the fold so that people don't need to scroll down to take an action on your website. And it's super important that you consider loading time as well. Because I remember, probably it's been updated and it's even worse as of now, but I remember when I was working at Google, we would say it takes, if a website takes more than 3 seconds to load, already 60% of users, they bounce back and they go away. They're not interested anymore. This is impressive. This means that potentially, you've done all of the effort to attract attention with your ads and to bring people to your website, and you lose them.
Absolutely.
So super important to have an optimized acquisition flow. And what can help is to map it out and to really also do some dummy tests with users to see how they behave on your website, and just don't only assume.
Absolutely. I see a question from Marius. If we can go more in detail into analytics. So we are going more in detail into analytics, as you see. So if you still have questions on this point, feel free to ask us later. But I think based on the questions, we can go forward, and then we're going to answer to some of them at the end. This leads me to the next step on then how do you transform really those leads into registrations. So again, like you have the remarketing that you can apply always on social media, on Google, etc. But sometimes, for example, whenever we have landing pages where people start registering, we always suggest, find a way in which maybe people start registering, but they don't complete those registrations. Find a way to really track those people and that you can retarget them and then finalize the registration so that you can then communicate and understand like how to then convert into like your users. How did you do this step, Isa, with your experience and when mentoring your the tag bridge, we said?
Yeah, this was actually one of the huge problems that I always saw, that you're very inclined, since you got a user interested in getting as much information that you will maybe not later need. This leads to very, very long and very cumbersome subscription forms. So with organizations like TechBridge, what I was seeing is that they had dropout rates when it came to completing the survey of up to 70%. Yeah. This means that you lose 2 out of 3 people at the subscription form. So here, what I would encourage you to do is to have a look at how you activate users and really have a process that is as simple as possible, where you only get the information that you absolutely need, and shorten as much as possible the path to using your product or service for customers. So, for example, what I advised organizations like TechBridge to do was to really map their process, understand which were the fields that they wanted to keep, and then which ones they wanted to make compulsory or not as well. And then use tools like Typeform that make forms visually engaging and also simplify the user experience and make it more appealing.
Yeah, that's super relevant. And I see a question of Sharon. What is the part of the R funnel that you find the most critical? And based on what you tell me, I think going really from the activation to the revenue is the most.
Yes, absolutely. This was the perfect
assist. The most critical.
Yeah, turning potential customers into paying subscribers or customers is the key step. And Mary, maybe if you want to speak a bit into that, then I can also tell you a bit about the experience with educational organizations.
Absolutely. One aspect, for example, that it's a bit harder to track sometimes is this cost on acquisition. So, I mean, unless you have paid campaigns where you can really see the cost, it's very hard to track this one, for example, because cost is made of different aspects. So that's why, I mean, go always more with the numbers and try to find more, to create more data into this, into this step. Going into the revenue, once you have, like the reason why all of these companies from the tech world are able to then generate revenue, right? I know like getting your data is always perceived a bit negative, but when it comes to selling, of course, when you have data, you can reach out to the people, and based on their their interests, you can really understand also what to sell. And then what we always say now, especially in crisis times, keep your customers closer, and it's more like the possibility that you can upsell or cross-sell to your to your current customers, because the cost of acquiring new customers, it's always very high. So it's very important that once you have this registration, once you have a community of people which is very connected to you, how can you then convert into those people into revenues? And sometimes in social business is a bit perceived, negatively, in a sense that there's always a bit, you're always a bit in the middle, right? You're doing something for good, so it's always bad to ask money, or like it's very, sometimes you have beneficiaries and users which are like on this line where you feel bad almost to ask for money, right? But at the end, it's really about sustaining your own cost. So how many, of those people that are registered are returning visitors? They really follow you. Track how you follow, how they read your emails, how they really like are engaging with your product, and understand really what can be interesting for them and what can be sold to them. And this is really like the first thing that we always like to suggest. And then based on, you might have different tiers, make always different tiers for your products so that you can upsell. So usually we always suggest to start, for example, with a freemium model where you can, as also Isa before was saying, you democratize access. So you have more people joining in and you understand what are the features which are like more valued by your customers. And then you're able to upsell to give like different features on top. Or maybe you have like a model that allows you to have very different kind of services. So maybe you can cross sell as well between like a different, completely different services. Isa, does this reflect your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you touched a couple of very important points. First, what you were saying around the stigma of making revenue and making a profit for social businesses. I think that's something very real. And here, I would encourage you to think in terms of revenues are what enables you to pay salaries for your team. They're what profit is what enables you to have a starting ground to grow your business. So it's even though you have a social aim, it's not a damnation to be profitable. Rather the opposite. This is what every social business, as fast as possible, should try to aim for. And then you touched another important point, which is around the freemium model and basically how to enable your to grow your user base without necessarily getting revenue at first. And here, for example, because we identified that the cost for courses to be paid was quite high, and on the refugee side, it often involved either having to look or gain access to scholarships or to involve, because many organizations didn't have this pathway, their job centers. What we saw was that convincing them of the value of the course via, for example, providing a very introductory course into tech that then enabled them to basically understand if this was something for them or not, and then go and find the support and the money to subscribe to a pay course was something that worked quite well. Also worked quite well in the German context, and I'm aware of the fact that it's not the same for every country to actually go directly to those gatekeepers, so Arbeitsagenturen, job centers, and have a partnership for them, so that then they would be the ones that suggest the courses to their beneficiaries. And this barrier to entry when it came to revenue was basically by a lot sliced by this partnership that we had with them. But at the beginning, it's a lot about experimenting and then also gathering feedback from users to understand what are the hurdles that they are experiencing and how can you convince them of the value of the service or product that you're providing, so that they feel like they want to overcome these hurdles.
Absolutely. And you're touching one point. I think we should really add it as a keyword on this slide: partnerships, because we tend to underestimate the value of partnership. Making partnership takes a lot of time, but it can be like a great way on which, like one thing on which to focus for revenues. Absolutely. And education as well. It's always very tricky because, especially as you rightly said, in some countries education is provided, and like you don't really pay a lot for education, so you expect workshops maybe to be like given for free. So it's very tricky to generate like revenues there. Partnerships can be a great tool. Absolutely. I go into the next phase. So we're approaching the end of the funnel, but in the end, you see that it's not the end because it then continues and continues. It's more like of a flow, but we have then retentions. Of course, then you manage to make your first purchase and you have one person like buying. How do you make sure that then you keep those customers over? And then again, remarketing and different ads. The usual channels can be like really the proof, but here I would really like to understand, like to bring forward more that really make sure that you then know your customers. You just don't take that one selling for granted, but you understand, okay, how can you then resell? And if this doesn't work in a certain amount of time, then what can you do to resell? And sometimes also another important aspect that you should consider is the volume of the investment, because like maybe especially if you have like products with little volumes, don't get just like happy with one single little volume that you sell, but how do you make sure, how can you maybe increase the volume then that people can buy more? That is also like one thing to keep in mind. I don't know, Isa, if you have some comments here. Meanwhile, I see that we have some questions here.
Yeah, from Maria. Thank you so much, Maria Jimena.
Yeah.
And I'm actually going to go a bit into what retention means, for example, for education businesses. So it's a bit particular because in most cases you have continued interaction and not many little interactions as you have, for example, when you have a physical product. But for example, what we can consider retention if we have course offerings as a product is how many people do we bring to actually follow us through the courses and arrive at course completion. And why is this important? Because, for example, you might, from a revenue perspective, have a rate-based system where people pay in different installments. Or also you really want to have graduates from the course that can act as testimonials and then have positive circles so that they bring new people into the system, whether it's referring their friends, and we'll go into that in the referral phase in a while, or whether it's helping you to attract attention. So what I saw, for example, with one organization in the educational sector is that they hadn't considered that the courses that they had available through, in that case, it was the Coursera platform, were exclusively in 2 languages, in German and in English. And actually, one of the biggest barriers that people had with progressing through the course, because they were people from a refugee background, was related to language.
Yeah.
This led them to then introduce Arabic as a language, but still, like the German society is very varied, and they had super varied classrooms. So basically, what they did there, which I thought was genius, and not only because I advised them to do so, was to contact scale-ups. There's many of them in Germany that have language lessons and language support as their mission. Talking about Babel, Ningoda, for example, because for these organizations to find opportunities for CSR efforts that are actually aligned with their mission is golden. And so basically what they ended up doing is they created a partnership with one of these organizations that enabled them to translate some of the content, but also to provide extra support from employees of the organization to refugees, kind of trying to reduce that friction and eliminate that barrier. So if there's a single takeaway here, when it comes to retention, really try to put yourself in the shoes of your customers. And also, if they abandon your service or your product, if they're not coming back, ask them why this is not the case. Is it a matter of pricing, or are there maybe some blind spots that you have that are not aware to you, such as, for example, the language blind spot? Don't lose on the possibility to survey and also reach out to former customers or abandoners to understand where the friction comes from.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the phase from which you can get into the retention, is really understanding the reasons why, rather than just giving up. Absolutely. This, like, I think, to answer to the question of Maria, because you touched across the all different layers on, really, you gave a lot of examples on education and like examples for on upskilling talents, like what elements are fundamental at every step of the funnel. If I can maybe like condense it in like some keywords that I was noting down, is really like content is the key. Are you presenting your value proposition in the right way? Know exactly your people who that you're targeting, what is important for them, and accessibility is key. So we always suggest for like, tell me, Isa, if it resonates with you, freemium models for education, because then you see like how they're going. And then like, or maybe these pay as you want models, for example, that can be great. Or having some content. Whenever you have content, you need to just deliver that content and then find a way to make revenues at a second step. Partnerships are fundamental in this case, and really see your students also as influencers. Reviews are fundamental. Like when they leave you a review that your course is good, that's going to add value for your courses and attract new people. Or when they share it, maybe will they get a certification that they can share, for example. And these are all elements that take us to the next phase, referral. So really like if you have things that can be shared, and there is like, and you see your users are influencers, you're going to have referrals. So like usually you see, for example, there's some models, I don't know how many of you use, for example, HelloFresh, or you open your N26 account. There's a lot of models out there. I mean, in Berlin, we have like tons of them, where they give you, your referral code. And then you share that code with somebody else and you get 50 euros on your account, for example, if you do something. This referral strategy, a referral is really about giving an incentive. So why should new users, share it and invite new users to come in? Because maybe they earn money, but we understand, of course, that especially social businesses, they can't just like deliver this kind of like in bonuses, but maybe, there's some certifications, or maybe there's some other incentives that people get. So really try to think of ways in which you can make your product and your social business shareable, talkable. I don't know here, Isa, how can you enlighten us on your examples?
Yeah, this is just want to stress that referrals and providing incentives doesn't need to be costly for your business. So, for example, something that I advised some of the educational organizations that I was working with to do is to create a lottery system where you would ask people, for example, to share their completion certificate on LinkedIn, and to do so consciously, to then tag back your business page, so that you also get some awareness because of that. And then among all of the people that were doing this, they auctioned off a voucher for Amazon gift card, for example. Or even one of them aligned with the social mission voucher to adopt a tree, for example. You can be very creative, and
Absolutely.
And it's also a way to find, for example, partnerships and exposure that is aligned with your brand and aligned with your mission.
Yeah, just try to understand where that referral came from, because then you can reward also people who referred you in some ways, and that generates even more like attachment to you, and it goes again into retention. So as I was saying, this is a funnel, but in the end, like, it's all influencing like each like every step is influencing each other, so to say, with different users. I don't know
And
if we
again, I
have.
would add,
Sorry.
so for example, in the example of the educational organization, when people are through with the course, ask them what they liked particularly, ask them
Absolutely.
what the value was struck, where they found employment with which employers, because these are all things that then you can funnel again in the awareness phase. So don't see this as a pyramid, but rather as a circle. Where you can actually leverage some of these points as selling points and attract people that are looking for the same things that your already existing customers had been looking for.
Absolutely. So we have one question from Marius, but it's like a long one. I want to make sure, Marius, that we take time to answer like your question, because it goes into agroforestry. So we will see now with Isabella. We wanted to give you the chance now. If you go on the platform, you find a workbook, and we wanted to give you the chance to really like go deep into this growth hacking mindset and go through the funnel yourself, thinking about your own social business. So Marius, you can go through it first, and then we're going to answer to your questions. We give you 10 minutes and you can try to fill it in by yourself. If you have questions coming out, just ping them in the chat, send them over, and in 10 minutes, by the time you are done with your exercise, we can go through it. So we see each other soon. I don't know if we have music. I'm sharing my screen, so I'm not sure I can put some music on. But let us get into the technicalities. Thank you, Aisha. Maybe Aisha will share again, like for people that might join later, the view on the Parrot funnel, the exercise that we are doing. We still have 5 minutes to remind people the exercise that we're filling in. I'm answering to some of the comments I see online, and then we can touch base on some questions afterwards. Still 5 minutes. Thank you, Aisha. I see a question of Victor Marshall. Very generic question. How can you try growth funds? So maybe go through this and then we can touch base again. How can we support better? in a couple of minutes, and then we go back into our workshop. I start sharing my slides again. In the meantime, I was reading the question from Marius, Isabella. So it would be like a separate social business case through which we could go, like literally in parallel. But basically, Marius, he's into agroforestry, and he's, you know, trying to develop a sort of a gaming, like a climate fresque. I don't know if you heard about it, Isa. I am relatively familiar with it. But basically, you want to kind of like create awareness through this gaming to make people and cities understand how can they plant more trees, like how can cities be like more tree intensive to cool down. So you can learn about agroforestry in a game, and then you can support farmers to learn and integrate agroforestry. I think you can touch base on some of the examples we already shared on, you know, how to create awareness about your game and how to bring people over. So you need to find a way, though, that is understand first who you're targeting with your game, and how can you get to their heart? Like, why would such a topic be important for them? Because for farmers, of course, you can find ways in which you can involve them, but then you might need to go through different channels, maybe. Look for the partners that work with farmers, for example, through which you can reach farmers, and really have a way in which you develop your game that is easy. And it's, I mean, usually with gaming, especially, you spend so many resources in developing a game, but then like, how do you get back those resources, and how you make sure that that game is relevant, and then, you know, it can be leveraged to go into the next phase and develop really something that is helpful. So I would say be as clear and as possible, simple as possible, and really understand who you're targeting with this game and with the message that you want to bring through. I would say this is the answer that I would give you.
Yeah, if I may, I think
Yes.
even here the important thing is to understand how to not only fulfill the social mission, but also make your venture profitable. So what I would encourage you to do is to understand, first of all, who your target user is and what do you want them to do, and how you could attach dollar or euro value to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
If if you have an app, do you want to gain revenue through enabling advertisers to have their ads in your app and keep the app free? Do you want to have a freemium model, for example, with in-app purchases to go along with the game, similar to what, for example, Candy Crush does? Do you want to keep it entirely for social, for its social mission? But what other sources of revenue can you look for then? Maybe it's applying to a specific grant. Maybe it's connecting with some organizations that actually sell products related to awareness and education in agroforestry. Maybe it's connecting to some of the platforms where you can buy, I don't know, local produce or adopt a tree and so on. What I would encourage you to do is to understand how you can fulfill your educational aim while also making your business model profitable. And this goes per se by understanding who your target users are, what you want them to do, and what they're getting out of it, for which you could make them pay.
Absolutely. So meanwhile, feel free to drop more questions. We are here. We're a bit like early today, Isa. We were like, we talked about being quick with growth hacking, and we were super quick. So
two Italians being quick. That's something that one has never seen.
And as two Italians, we didn't talk even too much. I mean, my throat is super like dry. I need to drink. But I think we stayed into the times greatly. So we're approaching the end of this workshop. You will see online the video. Some of you could not join. You will find the video online. We will upload all the slides. We will upload more resources you can use. You can reach out to us also anytime, also to Isabella. We can share in case the email of Isabella as well. So as we wrap up, just a couple of learnings a bit that we and for sure I noted down more learnings from listening to you as well, Isa, so I will share also those on top. But really to grow fast is really important to think about how you can create revenues, and thinking about how can you test your model to create more leads, to really get to the heart of your users. And this is just a tool that we presented, the R funnel, but it's really like a guide, because it can really guide you from one step to the other on how you get to really leads and how you create revenues. But I think today we learned also like a lot of other things, like how really content is key, but how you need to present your content in a way that there is a value in it. The value proposition is clear. The way you present your the social business, it's clear, it's simple, and it reaches to the users. So like it's really important to know your users very well, your customers very well. And also like one thing we didn't touch upon, but I was thinking about it, a lot of you guys, for example, they share with us, yeah, sometimes, we get too much into the product and we forget about the impact. And as you grow, and as like, the pressure to get cash and to get funds grows, you might also forget about this. So maybe one learning that I think one highlight that I think it's important is that you keep your impact in mind, because it's part of your value proposition. And that's why in social business, we always start from a social value proposition. So have that in mind and always clear, because it's going to be fundamental as well. You want to share some learnings from your side, Isa?
I would add to that to really focus on the users. See yourself as a user scientist in a way, as a UX researcher when it comes to how what the value proposition of your product, of your website, of your services, and really fall in love with the users, understand what needs they have, and understand what you're doing to solve them, and then position your product accordingly. I think this is the most important thing, that you really understand who your persona is, what unmet needs they have, how your product or services fills these needs, and then you use this throughout the acquisition funnel to basically reinforce the positioning of your product or your service. Always start from the user.
Yeah, absolutely. And with this, you have any more questions? So team, let me know if there's more questions coming in. I'm trying to look at all kind of channels where we are, social media, on the platform, getting new questions, but I don't see questions coming in. Anyhow, as said, we will share our emails. You can reach out anytime with your questions. I just wait a couple of more minutes if more questions come in. I see Marius commenting. He's gonna see how he can use upselling for his model very well. Let us know how it goes, and good luck. And I think that's it. So if new questions come in, we're gonna get them through you as well, Isa. But anyhow, I want to take the chance to invite you, everyone, on the 9th of November. We're gonna have a bit of a physical closing finally of this, like months together of workshops of our acceleration program. So we're gonna meet all at the Impact Hub on the 9th of November from 2 to 6:30. We're gonna have 2 workshops with our partner Broadcast Media Innovations. One is going to be about ESG reporting. It's like also a topic that came out sometimes from you as well, especially from our corporate partners, of course, who are doing social business incubation programs. We will also have a separate workshops about AI and how we can use AI in social business to increase impact. So you're more than welcome to come, learn further, and especially meet other like super change makers and entrepreneurs in our network, and be inspired by each one of you. Of course, Isabella, you're super invited. I know you're in Berlin, so you just have to manage with your work, but distance is less there. But I take the chance also to thank you, Isat, so much to jump on these workshops together. I had super much fun preparing it with you. And thank you to the team, Aisha, Jim, Jan, Sharon, Sabir, everybody who worked in the background on this workshop and all the other workshops. So thank you, everyone, and looking forward to hear more questions and see you, Isabella, in person.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's super inspiring always to be among social impact entrepreneurs. And I really hope that you see growth hacking as a way to achieve more and do more with little resources. I know, having been there, that in the day by day you're struggling with different priorities and with sometimes making it all come together, and I'm super happy that we've been able to give you some more tools to add to your pocket today.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.